How to have work-life balance in your team? That's the question that we're going to answer in this video. The leadership traits that I will be mentioning in this video, I've taken from my first-time leadership research. So if you want to know the 30 leadership traits that will allow you to be a successful first-time leader, then click on the link in the description below. You're a first-time leader, and your primary focus is to ensure your team delivers the desired results. Now your team is talking to you about getting some work-life balance. So how do you go about balancing between productivity and the well-being of your team? Work-life balance for your team actually has a number of factors that you need to consider. What's important to note is that the very first thing that you need to do is to be able to show interest in work-life balance. Your team is going to be looking at you for directions as to whether work-life balance is something that's going to be feasible for them. And so your team is going to be taking directions from you. You need to be initiating conversations, supporting your team to be able to handle their work-life balance and enable them to actually take action. Basically, when they see action from you, then they know that it's safe for them to take action for themselves. What you're ultimately accountable as a leader of your own team is the results that your team delivers. And that means you need to do whatever that it takes to ensure that your team delivers results. And that includes taking note of their work-life balance. Keep in mind that each individual team member will have their own definition of what work-life balance looks like for them, and how they want to go about balancing between their productivity and their well-being. So instead of you just mandating a one-size-fits-all approach, you need to go speak with each team member to understand what work-life balance is actually like for them. Only then can you explore what is feasible within the context of your team. So while you as the team leader have a lot of say in how work-life balance is going to be eventually implemented within your team, you actually do need to include your team members because they are the ones producing the results and they are the ones who are balancing between their own productivity and their well-being. You are there to support them so that things can happen. That means trusting them to be able to collaborate with you and to ensure that they implement what is the agreed definition of work-life balance you have within your team. It also means trusting them to know when they need to prioritize their productivity and when they should be prioritizing their well-being. Your role is to enable your team members to balance between their productivity and their own well-being while driving the team forward towards the results that they need to produce. And that's why it's important that you have those regular one-on-one conversations with your team members. Because you can't assume that you know what's really happening in their lives or how they see work-life balance working out for them. When you have those one-on-one conversations with them, you're more up to date with what's going on, and it gives you more information to then make the right decisions when it comes to flexibility and tailoring each approach so that each team member can make work-life balance work. And so when you're asking those insightful questions and listening to what your team member has to say, that's when you can get that necessary bit of insights so that you understand what work-life balance looks like for each of them. When it comes to work-life balance, you actually do need to exercise your emotional intelligence, especially your judgment. Because work-life balance isn't just about the physical, it's also the mental, the emotional. Naturally, when there's a need to prioritize productivity, you and your team need to focus on that. And when it is appropriate to focus more on well-being, you and your team should be able to do that. In reality, there's no one indicator They will tell you when is the time to focus on productivity or on well-being. It might be tempting to look at the number of hours worked, but in my view, it might be better to look at the output or the outcome that has been produced. The demands of work and life are always pushing and pulling at each other. And so just when you think that you got your work-life balance all sorted out, things are going to happen and you're going to have to sort things out once again. One thing that you and your team need to realize is that work-life balance is a never-ending journey. It is a continuous juggle between productivity and well-being. There's no end point when it comes to work-life balance. And sometimes it means prioritizing productivity and other times prioritizing well-being. What helps you and your team is to have those regular one-on-one conversations so that everyone knows when is an appropriate time to focus on productivity or to focus on their well-being. In a way, work-life balance is really more a mindset where you embrace this endless juggle between productivity and well-being. When you and your team are able to do that, then it makes it easier for you to eventually develop a culture where there is actually work-life balance within your team. If you enjoyed this video so far, really appreciate if you give me the thumbs up. It helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you have yet to subscribe to First Time Leadership, do click on that subscribe button to be notified of when new videos come out to help you with your leadership journey. And lastly, if you have any comments about what I've shared in this video, do share a comment below.